Hey everyone, welcome to episode 42 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend Eric Toz. How you doing, Eric? Man, what's going on? How are you?
What's up, Christian? Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Absolutely, man. It's been a couple months. We actually met up. You had this cool gathering. For those that are watching this and don't know, you're moving all your operations from Jersey here to Florida to Clearwater. St. Petersburg, I'm sorry. But we met up at the place you were staying at, and we had a cool gathering with a bunch of marketers. That was a good time. So I want to thank you for that. And we've been meaning to meet up again, but unfortunately we're so far away, man. And it's hard for me to plan this with like the kid and everything going on, but we definitely need to do it again. For those of you who don't know, Eric started a company called ShineOn. And what ShineOn is, they manufacture jewelry. And people can sell it, and it's really what's really cool about it. What I really like about it is that everything's already made for you. So all you have to do is just go over there, run traffic, and bring in the sales. And the coolest thing about it is that you're helping moms, with jobs and create the jewelry, and they really care about the jewelry because they identify with it, right? Because it's mostly for that demographic. So why don't you tell us? Let's get started. How did you get into being an entrepreneur? How did the whole story start? Were you as a kid selling things, to friends and stuff like that? Or how did it all start?
Well, first off, it's great to be in Florida down here with you. I know we didn't even know each other before I came down here. And it's just, our community is so amazing because, I'm connected to all these great entrepreneurs. And no matter where I go in the world, I know that if I, hit up a few people, we'll hit it off immediately.
Yeah, we talked a lot. We talked a lot before you even came down through groups and Messenger and all that good stuff. So it was great, actually meeting in person. I actually joke around with friends, when I go back to Fort Lauderdale when they come visit, and then it's been a while since we've seen each other, but we talk all the time, and it's like, hey, what's going on? What's new? The same thing. There's nothing new. We talk every day. It's so crazy that we have all this real-time communication nowadays that you're not missing a beat. And when you see somebody for a while, it doesn't feel like you haven't seen them for a while because you see the pictures, the videos, and you have conversations going on all the time. So that's what it felt like, when we actually met in person. It was just, hey, what's up, man? What's going on? It's just pick it up from the last conversation, right?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we'll have to have our Tampa Bay e-commerce meetup again sometime soon. Thanks for being part of that.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Entrepreneurial story.
How did you get started? Were you one of those kids back in the day selling stuff, or did you actually, grow up what I call the normal way, where you got a job and then you did it and then you hated it and started, to do side hustles? How did it all go down?
So I think I got a late start in entrepreneurship compared to some of the other kids these days in e-commerce. But my grandfather had a manufacturing business, like textiles, boxing and packaging and things like that. It was an 8-figure company, and he was very successful and a very good role model for me. Then my father had we had like a power sports business as a family. So his company sold jet skis, tractors, 4-wheelers, motorcycles, like pretty much anything with a small engine. And so I think it's always been in my blood. Unfortunately, some events that were out of our control as a family happened, and we actually lost that business when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. So, I was able to see what life is like having a successful business. And then I've also seen what life's like being totally bankrupt and being like the poor kid at school. And my dad,
I don't think we talked about this, but I have a pretty similar story. My dad had a huge business. I'm talking about 4,500 employees. And we were in Venezuela when he had it. And then he lost it because of everything that went down there. And, we went from living this luxury lifestyle and having everything you wanted to basically nothing, right? Because once the banks took over, they nationalized everything. He lost a lot of money. So it's funny. I don't know if this was your case, but this is my case. I grew up with money, so I always thought I'm set for life. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't have to do shit. I just have to go to school. And my dad always made me have a job, to just put that mentality, of like hard work, brings, happiness or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I always work, but I always had in the back of my head, if something went down, I will always be taken care of. And when it went down and he lost it, that's when it really sank in, like, oh shit, like now I gotta figure this out. And now I want to help my family because they gave me everything. So I kicked it into gear, and that's how I this is back in the day. But did you also have the mentality? I never get to talk to people about this. Did you also have the mentality growing up, or were you always didn't rely on that at all?
So growing up, no. I mean, growing up, I didn't see any wealth at all. Growing up, it was always like free lunch kid at school, and just buying everything from secondhand store and all of that. But my grandfather had all this experience, and so he died before I was able to fully ask him, and he was able to articulate all that to me. But I think it got maybe passed down to me subconsciously, which is nice.
Yeah.
So how I got to e-commerce was I was in college, and I was going to Ithaca College in upstate New York, and I was very hardcore. I was in a pre-med program. I was also playing 3 sports. I was playing football, rugby, and I was running track, indoor track at Ithaca College. And so it was very regimented, very kind of type A, kind of hardcore all the time, just kind of nonstop. And, I really wanted to be in the medical field, and I wanted to help people, which I love. I still love helping people.
Yeah, I do too.
But it was just a little bit different. And what happened, this is like the biggest blessing of my life in disguise. I hurt my ankle, and I had ankle surgery. So I couldn't play any of those 3 sports anymore. I'm okay now, but I probably had to take a year or 2 off. So I couldn't play sports. What I ended up doing was going to Australia on a study abroad trip, because I was like, well, I can't do any sports. I want to go try something different. So at this point in my life, all my friends were kind of jocks. They're all on the football team or in this pre-med program. And so when I went to Australia, I was surfing every day. I was doing painting. I was doing photography and art, smoking a little bit of weed, kind of having a good time and really exploring myself.
Right. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, I really like being creative. I really like doing this sort of artistic side of me. How can I bridge the gap between being creative, but also being having a future and making money? So I decided when I came back, I want to switch to marketing. And so Ithaca had one of the best advertising programs in the world. A lot of people from Hollywood are from Ithaca. People that run Hollywood, and a lot of the ad agencies in New York. There's a ton of Ithaca people.
I have one client over there that they own a bunch of restaurants, and we do the advertising for them. So I'm pretty familiar with the area now that I work with them. It's hilarious that it's just a coincidence that you're from there too. That's cool.
Yeah. So I actually had a second blessing in disguise. So I had all these ad agency jobs lined up. And that I knew I wanted to be doing that, working at an ad agency creative department. But the stock market, I graduated in 2008 when the stock market hit, the shit hit the fan, and everybody I was talking to, I would call them at the ad agencies, and they're like, yeah, that person doesn't work here anymore. They're like, what? I'm supposed to start working in 2 months.
Wow.
Like, yeah, you don't have your job either. I'm like, what? So I had to go back home, and I was actually roofing houses for a year in New Hampshire. So I was actually roofing houses in the snow.
That's rough, man. That's rough. That's hard work.
Yep. I was doing chewing tobacco, like not living a healthy lifestyle. I didn't even have health insurance. I was reaching out. So anyway, I got tired of that, and then I moved to Boston, and I started sleeping on my cousin's couch. He was going to Northeastern University, and I ended up finding an internship for SEO at a small startup. And so I was like, cool, I like this whole like startup tech company thing. It's not like advertising per se, but this is in like 2013 when, or 2011, 12, when tech startups became a popular thing. You know, Uber came out, Uber, Airbnb, like Lyft, and there was just crazy money going around. So I wanted to sort of be part of that in the Boston area. So, and it was cool because like you could be creative, but also have a ton of growth potential. I don't need to work at an ad agency my whole life and be capped at 80 grand a year. Right. So I liked that possibility. So through that internship, I parlayed that into another internship at a website called custommade.com, which is like a high-end Etsy. And I was actually the first employee there. First full-time employee. It was very small when I found the ad on Craigslist. And we ended up, over 5 years, we ended up raising $25 million in venture capital. And I got to see like all stages of growth at a tech company and manage a lot of people and really kind of get my feet wet with e-commerce. And the big how ShineOn came to be was, so this was a two-sided marketplace where you would request, like, I want to get a custom engagement ring, right? Let's call it. So you would submit your idea with some photos, and then you would get bids from 5 different artisans, and then they would make an offer. You could go back and forth with questions, and then you could actually make your deposit and your purchase through Custom Made. So it sounds like a great business, and it definitely helped a lot of people. And we sold a lot of really unique jewelry items. But the problem was it just wasn't a very good business. We were only taking 10% because we were just facilitating the makers and
you're the middleman, essentially.
Yeah, but we didn't have a good control over like the buyer experience because we had 30,000 artisans, so everyone is different. And there's no guarantee on that experience. And we were only taking 10%. So at one point we were losing $1 million a month, burning $1 million a month, trying to figure it out. And that's what you're encouraged to do when you raise a lot of money, is like spend, try to figure it out fast or fail fast. And so by the last year, we were running out of money. I was like, guys, I think we need to make some big changes here. I think we should get rid of all the artisans, and we should make everything in-house ourselves.
Hold on a second. Let's rewind a little bit, because I think people will be interested in this part. So at this point, you're burning through all this VC cash, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get the VC cash in the first place? Was it through a connection, or did you pick up the phone and it's like, all right, let me start hitting these firms because I know how this works and see if I can get in a pitch meeting with somebody? How did you get to that point where you could get all this cash?
Well, it's a benefit to live where venture capitalists live. So I was living in Cambridge, Mass, like next to Harvard and MIT.
Right.
And that's where our company was. We were in Cambridge. So, I think just being there is a good start. You can go on a lot of coffee meetings. You can build relationship and have people, even if they don't invest right away, you can keep in touch and say, keeping your promise to them, showing them traction when they tell you that they need more traction. So I think a couple things. I have a whole article on my website about raising venture capital, 6 steps to it. It is sort of this phenomenon. You're creating a market out of thin air, and you're creating a fake sense of urgency, and you're creating a market for something that never existed before, and there's no reason for it to exist other than for you to personally raise money. So it is sort of a phenomenon.
And we'll put the link in the description, but so everybody can take a look at the article, by the way. So
Yeah, but it's kind of like, I would say it's kind of like getting into Harvard. It's a lot easier once you're into that group. So
Right.
once you get one person to say yes, it's a lot easier to get lots of people to follow on, because at the seed stage of raising venture capital, investors don't really know what they're doing at that point. It's kind of like, I want to be part of this. And a lot of them are lazy. So they're like, well, if this person invested, I know he's going to do due diligence, so I don't have to do it. So if he's in, then I'm going to say yes too.
And this is people with access to millions. Like, yeah, you know what? I know Charlie did his homework, so I trust if he did it, I'll do it. Here's a couple mil. Go burn through it. I mean, essentially what they do. I mean, for those of you listening that don't know or watching and don't know, it's like, to them, they have it all figured out. There you go. We're going to invest in 10 companies this year. None of them are going to completely fail. And that one that hits is going to pay for everything. So I guess that's the way they look at it. But
exactly. So yeah, at that point, we were burning all that cash, and so I was like, let's screw all this, like screw the artisans. We can do it all in-house, because we had such good SEO. I mean, anything you type in, custom made, whatever, custommade.com is going to pop up. So we had all this free traffic. We just had an issue of like executing on the supply chain and executing on the whole operations and experience. So, and then on top of that, margin. So instead of 10%, I was like, I think if we do it in-house, we can take a 30% margin instead of a 10. So basically they were like, yeah, go do that. Eric, go set that up.
I love it.
So I was like, okay. So I had a friend I got introduced to, who makes all of David Yurman's jewelry in Thailand, in Bangkok, and David Yurman and Saks Fifth Avenue and all that stuff. So, one partner instead of all of these partners. So, I went over to Bangkok multiple times, and I learned all about this production process, and all the ins and outs. I learned about 3D modeling. I actually went to Serbia and set up a team in Serbia that we still actually use this 3D modeling team in Serbia, and learned all about that. And then we were starting to get the supply chain set up, but it was pretty much too late to turn that thing around. You're just burning too much cash. So, I got a nice heads up. Like, Eric, if you're thinking about leaving, I think this would be a good time to go. You have a head start before everybody else, and we know you wanted to go do this thing anyway, which you've been building. I'm like, yeah, I do. Thank you. So actually, I asked them to fire me. I'm like, yo, can you just fire me, please? They're like, why? They're like, well, I'm like, I have no money to start this thing, but if you fire me, I can get unemployment. So they're like, dude, of course we'll fire you. We're gonna so we went out for beers. Like, we were getting drunk, and they were like, we're gonna fire the shit out of you tomorrow. I was like, yeah, do it. You won't. I
can get my $600 unemployment check or whatever it is. I don't even know how much it is, but
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. It was like, but it was something. It gave me
time.
No,
for sure, man. Trust me, I'm not knocking on it. You got to do what you got to do, right? Yeah, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So I just think it's hilarious. I went down, fire me. They're like, we're gonna fire the shit out of you tomorrow. So they fired you.
It was awesome. It was awesome. They fired me, and they gave me some nice severance, like not a lot, but I think it was like 17 grand or something.
Yeah.
And so with that money and the unemployment money, I actually traveled all around Europe for 2 months by myself. So I was like, I think I visited over 20 countries in 2 months, and trains, buses, like whatever.
That's awesome.
And that was a really good lesson on perseverance, being alone, trying to keep costs down. Like, I don't know, it was a super good lesson for life. So I came back and moved to Brooklyn, and I started setting up the first version of ShineOn.
That's funny.
So at the beginning, it was called Ring Around, and I only sold rings. And the reason why I wanted to sell rings is because I could get group purchases. So I actually sold the first version of the company was I made motorcycle rings for motorcycle groups. So I would literally just cold email them and say, hey, do you guys have any custom rings? If not, can I make you some? So this is how I kept my lights on and afforded my rent, paid my rent, was making these motorcycle rings for clubs. So around
Niching
this thing,
down. That's a lesson right here. Niching down hardcore so you can
super
just
niche.
monetize that niche and be the boss at it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, think about
like
it.
the only guy.
Yeah, think about it. If you would have gone like, hey, does anybody want a silver ring? And then you're hitting up everybody. Anybody can get a silver ring anywhere. But if you niche down, hey, I'm making especially for like, bike motorcycle guys, right? They're most likely to buy it from you because it's especially made for them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So the coolest group was the Buffalo Soldiers. It was like a 3,000 person black motorcycle club, and they were like the coolest people ever. I sold a lot of rings to them. Buffalo Soldiers. Awesome.
You get to ride with them? Did you go on any rides with them at one point?
They wanted me to. They wanted me to. I was like going to be the only white person. I thought it would have been really really fun.
That's cool. All right. So okay, so you sold the ring, sold the motorcycle people with guys, and how did you go from there? At that point, you already were making money.
So the biggest kind of turning point was like Teespring. This was in 2015, and Teespring like was exploding back then. So this is 5 years ago.
I remember that.
And Teespring was in Providence, and I was in Brooklyn, so it was only 2-3 hours away. And what happened was Teespring left Providence and they moved to San Francisco because they wanted to be part of the tech community, and they raised all this money, so they ended up moving out there. Like half the company didn't want to move with them, so half the company wanted to stay in Providence, Rhode Island. So I was like, damn, there's probably a lot of people that know a lot about Teespring and what happened and how it went from like 0 to $100 million a year in revenue through affiliate marketers, through Facebook marketers. So what I ended up doing was actually right before they left, I ended up poaching their head of marketing and their head of sales from Teespring. And I said, hey, I have all this jewelry production knowledge. I have a good e-commerce background, and you guys know, you guys have all the connections to these Facebook marketers. So let's come together on this thing. And
dude, Teespring will treat us like kings, bro. Anything we wanted, they will reach out all the time because they knew we could bring the traffic, and that was the rise of like Facebook golden era, the gold, gold rush, right? That's when, God, man, I just look back.
You a Teespring seller?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I was selling t-shirts all over the place, whatever I could get my hands on. I wasn't as good as I am now, obviously, but I was still learning at that point. But dude, it was so easy to make money.
Free traffic through the pages.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like organic wasn't choked, like you would spend $5, make $2,000 back on one t-shirt. Like it was insane, dude. It was insane. Like this is where like followers came out of. Like everybody was driving that's how the whole Lamborghini thing started, because everybody started making all this crazy money. Some of these people were broke, and they go from nothing to making 150 grand a month. So what is the first thing they do when they're 19, 20, 21, 22? I got to buy a fucking Lambo. So that's how the whole Lambo thing started with the whole internet marketing community. That's how the joke, this. That's where the joke came from. Now it's like, now you got to know your shit, and you got to build a brand, and, it takes a little bit more money, but it's still possible. It just takes a little, there's more competition out there, but go ahead.
Yeah, no. So some of those early Teespring sellers were ShineOn's first sellers. So like the Rush brothers, Keegan and Corey Rush, I think they were actually our first sellers ever. And now they're doing amazing things with their own company, Blue Pack Marketing, but they're instrumental in helping us figure that out. So after we got some initial traction through those few Teespring sellers, I went and raised $1.3 million seed round for ShineOn. And, there's a lot more to the story. There's 3 or 4 more years in between to where we're at now. But now we're selling about $50 million a year worth of jewelry through us and our affiliate partners, and launching into all sorts of products. And I'm in our new factory in St. Pete, which you need to come see.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think I guess the short version of those 3 to 4 years of what I went through to get to this point was we actually didn't, at that point, we like custom made, we didn't have full control over our supply chain. We actually still weren't making everything in house. We were actually working with that guy in Thailand. We would create renders with our 3D rendering team. We would sell the render, so we had no inventory in house. Then we would export daily all the orders into an Excel spreadsheet, send them over to Thailand. They would manufacture them and overnight them back to us as soon as possible. So the quality was amazing. Like, this is not cheap jewelry. This is any Saks Fifth Avenue, any high-end store. This is the quality they were doing. So it wasn't a question of quality, but buyers were waiting like 3 to 4 weeks to get it. So we were getting hit with all these chargebacks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Facebook didn't like our domain. So
here's a misconception that people have too, and you know this obviously, and you're gonna agree with me on this. Like, people like to dog on China or Vietnam or, in this case Thailand, because it's shitty because it's made over there or whatever. Like, let me tell you something. Most of you have an iPhone. Is that iPhone shit? No, because they make them to their specs. And if you have a relationship with that factory, and you get it done the right way, you get quality shit done. But it's like you said, what kills you is the shipping. So unless you're like one of these big companies that you're like, you were overnighting stuff, so that had to be super expensive. I know it is, and you don't want your people waiting 3 to 4 weeks. But at the same time, if you're not a huge brand where you can afford to buy, you have the forecast of like, oh, I know this holiday season we're going to sell 30,000 rings, so just order them way ahead of time. If you're changing constantly, you don't want to get stuck with that inventory either. So, I mean, that's why you brought it in-house, right? Yeah, eventually, that's why you brought it all in, so you have control over everything.
Yeah, I mean, so we were running out of, honestly, ShineOn was like running out of money too, because we didn't have full control over the supply chain, and that was hurting our sellers. And we were, like I said, we were selling a lot of jewelry and it was going great and everybody was winning. We had a lot of margin, but over time, it just wasn't the best buyer experience. So I actually had to shut down the operations for like 6 months, and I moved the company. We had actually an office in Providence. I moved it to New Jersey. And that was when I was like, all right, I've learned this lesson more than once about doing everything yourself, doing it in-house. I'm finally going to do it. So we bought like our first couple machines and we set up in a garage, literally a garage. And while I was setting up the operation, Dan, our CTO, is building the first version of the Shopify app, which is super popular today and still uses the same technology backbone. This is in 2017, so 3 years ago. 3 Christmases ago, 2017. About this time, exactly this time 3 years ago, we launched the Shopify app with the graphical jewelry product. We had these circular necklaces and also heart-shaped necklaces, and they did super well. And that's
you still have the heart-shaped necklace, right?
Yeah, we have that and dog tags and all sorts of graphical jewelry products. So yeah, fast forward, we were in New Jersey for a few years, hired some really talented people, found some really great people in this small town. And I think my biggest lesson from being in this small town of like 5,000-10,000 people was there's good people everywhere. There's just a lack of leadership in most places. So I felt like I was able to take totally raw people who had no idea about e-commerce and train them and turn them into really great managers. And we still have two, even though we don't work in New Jersey anymore, we still have two people from that original team. One person I found at a bar. I was doing,
That's
random
awesome.
guy who bought me a shot of, what was it? Random shot of, not Jägermeister, but it was Jameson. He bought me a shot of Jameson.
Nice.
And then an awesome woman who today she runs like all our new product development and new product testing. And so anyway, yeah, we found amazing people in that small town, learned a lot of lessons about leadership and training and growing people personally. And then just this year, after Mother's Day, we've had our best 4 months in the history of the company, the last 4. And I decided to consolidate. And I'm here in Florida, and like I said a couple times, and we just moved that whole factory from New Jersey. And right now it's just waiting in some pods behind me to unpack. So yeah, just doubling down.
That's cool, man. And this is why I love having people like you. And I had, Don Wilson a while back too, because everybody think like companies like yours or like, the stuff we have made, to a lot of people, it seems like it happens overnight. And that's not just the case. That's not the case at all. And I think I talk about it all the time in here, like, especially kids now, they see everything on Instagram and all that stuff is like overnight success. But, how many years did you eat shit for learning to get to where you're at today, right? I mean, I know I did, right? And I think that's a good message to have to the people out there who are listening to this, that it's a lot of hard work and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to, and you're going to learn from those mistakes. And some of them it's going to work out or it's not. And if it doesn't work out, then keep moving on, man. And you'll find your groove and you'll make it work, right?
Yeah. And I think, it's, I would say number one skill as an entrepreneur is your ability to pull people into your mission, like your ability to recruit partners, recruit affiliates, recruit other people to come work for you, take a pay cut. Like, how can you convince these people to do that and be part of your thing?
Right.
That's the biggest skill. And at this point, I feel like ShineOn's kind of grown beyond me. Like it's starting to snowball a bit between the number of sellers we have, the staff that's continuing to join. So yeah, but now we're really accelerating much faster than we ever have, but that's only after like 4 or 5 years of very small incremental growth, right? Just going through a lot of pain, going through a lot of hard lessons, refining yourself as an individual. Like I'm a totally different person I am now than even 3 years ago, even 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that personal journey, like, I think entrepreneurs, like, yeah, we want to make money, but we're about going through the journey. And
I tell people all the time, it's like at one point your bills are paid, right? And once your bills are paid, yeah, you can buy cool shit, but it's not about that. You think it is, and that's what drives you at first. But once you have it, it's like, okay, there's more to it than just, money's nice, obviously. But, it's I can have $100 million in the bank right now, and I will still do what I do daily just because I could not sit here and do nothing all day. Right? You can go travel for a little bit, take a vacation, but then after I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not wired that way. Now, my wife, she'll lay by a fucking pool all day if she had the choice. You know what I mean? But it's like people like you and I, we're not wired that way, right?
Yeah, I think they say entrepreneurs have a lot of similarities to artists. And I think like we have higher rates of depression, we have higher rates of anxiety, because we want to show the world our dream and our vision, and not everybody sees it. So we have to go through this process of self-love, self-acceptance, all this pain. And I feel like it's so worth it because all the best things in life have pain that precede them. Like giving birth to a child, you just went through this. Congrats.
Well, I did. My wife did. I was just there.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Running a marathon, like, a lot of pain precedes the finish line, but you don't get that feeling. Like all the best things in life are things you don't pay for, hard things you go through, you know? So I think this is one of them for sure.
Yeah, dude, I love the story. I love everything you have told today. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I have to cut it short, but anytime you want to come back on, man, just let me know. Where can everybody, let's talk about ShineOn. Obviously, you can, Shopify, if you have a Shopify store, you want to sell jewelry, you can download the app. It hooks up automatically to your Shopify store. People come in, make the order. It's all automatic. Any pointers there on ShineOn for people who want to get started with it?
Yeah. So if you go to shineon.com in the upper right corner, it's is a button that says sellers and affiliates. And from there, you can download our Shopify app. If you want to sell through shineon.com, you don't need to run your own store. We'll do all the CS for you. We'll do everything. You're just publishing items and running traffic to those links like Teespring. And then we have a CSV upload if you want to sell through WooCommerce or BigCommerce, or you want to create your own app. Highly recommend using that feature as well.
That's cool. So easy enough to use. Eric, again, thank you so much. Guys, go check out ShineOn. They have great products, obviously. And Eric, we got to hang out again, man. Once we got to make some plans. I got to go see the new facility. So I'm going to go check that out soon. And for those of you that are still here, remember, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. So Eric, I'll talk to you later, man. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. I'll see you soon, okay?
Anytime.